when we think about online applications, multiple sources will tell you that the average role, when it's posted online, it gets about 250 to 350, somewhere in that ballpark. That's how many applications it gets, and that's an average, right? So John, you work at Amazon. Amazon roles probably get many, many more applications, whereas the small business across the street from here probably gets many, many less. So that average is kind of right in the middle. And when we think about the number of people that get in the door for an interview, companies not going to be able to interview 250 people. So they use the applicant tracking system in most cases to filter out a lot of these resumes. And they get down to maybe about 10 to 20 resumes that get in the hands of a recruiter. Recruiter looks through those resumes and they basically say, okay, of these people, here are the 5 or so that we want to bring in for an interview, because that's basically what they have allocated budget-wise, time-wise for their team. So when we do the math there, 250 to 350 applications, 5 people come in for an interview. That's less than a 2% chance of just getting an interview, like not even getting an offer.
First call, just one call.
Yeah, literally just one call to see are you qualified? Yeah. And the crazy thing is that when we look at the landscape, 75% of people use online applications as their primary method to get in the door for jobs. So 75% of the candidate pool are all using this one channel that only has a 2% chance of success, and not even the metric that we're looking for when it comes to true success, like just getting in the door. So that's the route or the channel that most people are playing in. And so if the hires really aren't coming from there, where are they coming from? Well, if we look at what else is out there data-wise, it really shows that referrals are the name of the game. So we talk about sharing all the data from, the most conservative estimate that I've seen from a place called JobVite. They say that about 40% of hires are made via referral. I've seen that go as high as 80% from a study or survey rather done here on LinkedIn by basically a recruiting firm. I think they had several thousand people chime in there. And the Wall Street Journal has actually come out with an 80% number as well. So pretty reputable sources across the board. But even if you take the most conservative estimate, we're going from a 2% chance of getting an interview to a 40% chance of winning the job. And the crazy thing is that only 7% of applicants come in via referral. So if we just take a step back and understand what we're talking about here, if you're applying online, you're competing with 75% of the applicants out there for a 2% chance of success. Whereas if you go for that referral, if you go for that relationship and you find creative ways to showcase your value, you're competing with 7% of the applicants for a 40 to 80% chance of success. And to me, once you understand those numbers, and that's exactly what happened for me, I saw that data as a job seeker and I said, I am never submitting an online application again, or at least never spending more than, the bare minimum amount of time to just get that app in the door and have my bases covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love that. That's such a perfect foundational conversation to what we're going to be talking about today, which is why I want to bring up that Acorn talk. And another thing that I'll add with this is you apply and you have that 2% chance of applying or of getting a call, and you're getting a call from a recruiter who's just doing a screening. They have not actually held the role that you're going after.
Yeah.
And so you can't even have a really detailed conversation. This is one of the major pain points that I faced when I was trying to go through this process in 2014 and I wasn't getting any traction. I kept saying, if only somebody would just speak to me, if only I could get to the hiring manager and have a real conversation, they could see my value. But that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
2%.
Yep. And the crazy thing though, is that most people, they see that, right? They see the recruiter and they go after the recruiter because they have, it's funny because that's the data, right? And 75% of people are going for the online apps, but this idea of networking is shoved down our throats. I give a workshop on relationship building at all these different places. And every time I open it up and I ask people, how many of you have heard of networking? Everybody raises their hand. And then my next question is, well, how many of you feel confident if, I said, here's the hiring manager for the role, how many of you would feel confident in the steps you'd take to try to build a relationship with them? And not a single hand goes up. And I think that's the problem in and of itself right there. This idea of networking is shoved down our throats, but those same people that are pushing us to network don't tell us how to network. And so what do? Well, we try to we do what we can, I guess is the best way to put it. And so that's being direct, and that's getting in front of the people who who are right in front of us. And that tends to be a recruiter. But the problem with that is, recruiters are they work their butts off, and they do a ton of work, and they help so many people. But at the end of the day, their influence ends, to your point, John, when you get that first phone screen, or when you get in the door for that first or second round interview. They don't have any say over the final hiring decision. So if you spend all this time to try to build a relationship and get in the door with recruiters, unless you want to be a recruiter, as soon as you get into the rounds that matter in the interview, you're all of a sudden talking to strangers who have no idea who you are, and you're at a big disadvantage. So rather than focusing on the recruiters, finding those people who are actually working in the roles that you're going after and building relationships with them, so many benefits, right? They can influence the hiring decision. They can give you so much good information about the team and the role and the company. That's really where you want to be spending your time.
Yeah. What do you think? You've shared a lot of that there's value validation projects people can do. Do you think there's other, because, there's a lot of people who are it's not good to work for free. And even though value validation projects are cool, even having a portfolio could be good as well.
Yeah.
Are there other tactics that you imagine people can try if they don't want to do a value validation project? Because some people I think to a degree, I always respect people who are I just can't, they don't feel like it's fair, right? They don't feel as if they should. And to a degree, there's a point to that, because there's some companies that take advantage of you, and they actually use that value validation project as ammo for their next big initiative, right? So are there other tactics that you encourage people to attempt and try?
Dude, Tim, I'm so glad you asked this, man.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite questions to answer, because I get that piece of feedback all the time. And here's the deal, dude. One, you shouldn't be out here creating value validation projects for every single company that you're applying to. It's just too much. So my advice is you should get some sort of meaningful commitment from the other side. And to me, that means two things. That's either a formal interview, or that is, having a conversation with somebody who can get you in the door and you feel would advocate for you. So if you talk to somebody and you're man, that was pulling teeth, maybe that's not the best opportunity. But if you talk to somebody and they're I love what you're doing, I love your story, let me know how I can support you, that to me is somebody who would go to bat for me. I'm willing to put together a value validation project. So with that as the context, here's what I have to say. The average salary increase when you change jobs, and assuming you do this correctly and you move, to the next step, to the next level, whatever it is, you're looking at an average of a 20% increase in salary. So let's say that you make $50,000 a year, which is I think that's close to the average household income in the country. I think if you're in tech, especially, you're making a little bit more than that. But let's say 50, and we'll run with that number. So 20% of 50 is $10,000, right? And you've already done all this stuff. You've written your resume, you've written your cover letter, you've gone on your interviews, or you're planning for your interviews and you're preparing. So value validation project, let's say it takes you an extra 5 hours for a company. So we stand to make $10,000 extra dollars, and we're putting in an extra 5 hours. So if we don't even think about any of the other work that we've done and we just focus on the value validation project for that incremental gain, our payment, if we win this job, would be $2,000 an hour. So that's the first thing. But I get that it's not going to work every time. There's no such thing as a silver bullet. So let's say you have to do that, 3-4 times or something. So now you're looking at 20 hours, let's say, to put together 4 value validation projects, and one of those roles works out. Well, 20 hours divided by $10,000 is $500 an hour. Now, if you're making $50,000 a year, as you are in this example, and you are not willing to work for $500 an hour, which is way above what you're making at your job on an hourly basis, I would question how badly you want this role. Because to me, if you're not willing to work for a substantially higher sum to get this job, which salary isn't the only thing on the table here, right? What else is at stake? Better company, stock, bonus, better quality of life, better benefits, more work-life balance, more PTO, all of this insane stuff that you could get. If you're not willing to put in an extra 5 hours to do that, I would question how badly you want this role.
Because you're seeing it from like the upside of it is much greater if you do get your foot through the door because of the value validation project.
Especially if nothing else has been working, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can either put in 5 hours and give yourself a better chance, or you can continue running the risk of this not working again. And the other thing I'd say is that, like, dude, if this is such a great litmus test, like, if I see a company steal my ideas, I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
And that sounds crazy, right? But why am I happy? Because I just dodged like the biggest bullet in the world. Like, these people don't even pay me yet. And this person is already stealing my ideas. So would I ever want to work on a team where their whole business model is based on stealing ideas from a candidate? Absolutely not. And then imagine what happens when you get on that team. Like, what happens when you stay late and work on that project, or you take on that stretch project, or you put in the extra hours, and your boss is all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I did that. That was me. And then your boss gets the raise, your boss gets the promotion, and like you're left hanging out to dry. You know, you're dodging such a huge bullet by putting yourself out there a little bit up front, and you're boosting your chances of getting this job. So for me, as a job seeker, my whole philosophy was, I'm going to do everything in my power. Like, I cannot control what I cannot control, and I'm gonna do my best not to worry about that. But I absolutely cannot put my head on the pillow at night saying there's one more thing I could have done. Because especially when you're interviewing at Microsoft or Google or Amazon or any of these places that any of us have gotten interviews at, like, I could not live with myself if I didn't give a role at one of those companies 100%. And to me, that includes doing the value validation project.
I love that. No, that's actually a really great rationale. What are your thoughts, John?
No, I totally agree. I did absolutely everything when it came to my interview at Amazon. I did everything. I spent over 50 hours going through mock interviews with just myself. I videotaped myself. I did everything because I knew what was at stake. Right? The thing that a lot of people don't see when it comes to big tech organizations is big tech organizations pay more than what you could physically imagine in a normal work scenario, right? Like, if you're working middle America or you're working at a corporation, you're going to see the articles that say, here are the top 10 highest paying jobs in America. And you're going to see the first thing be a doctor, and you're going to see one of the top 5 be software engineer, and doctor is maybe 200,000 and software engineer is like 130,000. But a software engineer at Facebook is getting paid 380,000, right? Like, the construct of what's actually happening at these organizations is much different. So that's again why, like, if you're going to especially try to land at a top tech company, where even Facebook, the median salary across 70,000 employees is 240 grand median at Facebook. There's a lot at stake. Right? You got to literally put everything on the line because it's life-changing money.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. And it's funny too, because I think people, and it's why a lot of people covet those roles. And you have to also be ready to really be prepared, because I think that a big part of what Austin always shares is that, interviewing is just building that relationship on the front end, right? And, once you get there, you're always interviewing, even beyond the interview, right? Like, you're always interviewing to maybe like the next lateral role you can up level to in Microsoft or at a Facebook, and to get that even higher salary, if that's what you want.
Yeah, if that's what you want. So there's a couple questions about networking, right? We talked about networking being shoved down our throats. I want to unpack that a little bit. When you say it's shoved down our throats, what type of networking are you advocating for? Because there was one comment that was talking about, hey, like, my hit rate's not very good. I send out 100 emails. So, like, what do you mean when it comes to networking? Well, like, what's an alternative way to think?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I've been looking at the questions too, and this one's so great because I am a person who shoves networking down the throat. The difference about me is that, and you guys, I like to believe that we go that's 50% of the way. We go the extra 50% in actually showing people how to network correctly. And so, like, the fact that networking is shoved down the throat isn't the issue. It's the fact that it's not followed up with any tangible plan or framework or steps. And so when we think about networking, I'm going to try to do this in as best of a nutshell as I can. But essentially, like the biggest mistake that people make when they're networking is using what I call a me mindset. And so honestly, even before we get into that, John, to answer your question, like, you know, what are people talking about when they say networking? So like, I think traditional networking is like you go to the career fairs, or you go to meetups, or you, you know, join a LinkedIn Live and everybody puts their like link in the comments, or even worse, there's one of those stupid posts that's like every connection matters. So like leave your comment and we'll all connect and be better. And like nobody's like intentionally actually consistently getting jobs out of that. And when we talk about like the career fairs and stuff like that, like the person that you want to connect with, they're not at that meetup or that career fair or whatever it is. So as we mentioned earlier, like you need to go identify the people who are the decision makers, like who is in charge of hiring for this role, or who can influence the person in charge of hiring for this role. That's going to be a small subset of people. Like that's going to be 5 people, maybe 10 people, maybe. And so we're not shaking hands and handing out business cards. We're saying, here are the 10 people who can have the biggest impact on my ability to get hired at this company. And instead of going 100 miles wide and 1 mile deep, I am going to go 1 mile wide with these 10 people, and I'm going to learn everything that I freaking can about their company and about them. And then what I do is going back to that me mindset, like I try to avoid that at all costs. And so the me mindset is when we show up and we basically make the whole outreach about ourselves. So we say, you know, hey, John, you work at Amazon and I want to work at Amazon. So here's my resume. Like, can you refer me? Can you pass it along? Can you give me advice? Can you do any of these things? And so what am I doing there? I'm essentially saying like, hey, John, we've never met before, but I would appreciate it if you would go to your manager and say, hey, Austin is worth, $280,000 and his work is going to be top notch, despite the fact that I've never met this dude and he sent me one email. That's not a reasonable ask. And I think the reason we make that ask isn't necessarily, because we're intentionally going down the wrong path. It's because we're not really taught, what else we should be doing. And so really when we think about reaching out to people and building relationships with them, it all comes down to making it about the other person at the start. So I think about relationships as basically as a social bank account, if you will. So, back when I was starting my job search, wasn't making a lot of money, was racking up my credit card bills. I overdrew my bank account a lot, like all the time. And so that's how I think about relationships. Like, let's say an action from your end, like either, one of you guys, if I want to make an ask of either of you, let's say that cost me like 20 social dollars. If I try to make that withdrawal when I have $0 in the bank with you guys in our relationship, I'm going to overdraw my account. But if I take the time to invest in you guys and make the outreach about you guys and support you guys and add value to you, I'm going to be making small deposits of, $1, $2, $3 at a time. And then eventually we're going to work our way up to that $20 where I can make the ask of you. And so the way that we network with people is by adding value to them, making it about them at the start, and then slowly building up to making that ask. And just to kind of close the loop here, and we can dive into this deeper if you want, but let's say that it all works out. Like, let's say I send that cold email that's like, hey, dude, you work at Amazon, here's my resume, and you say yes. Like, how well can you really sell me to this person who's making the decision? Not super well, because you don't know anything about me. So I would much rather delay that gratification a little bit and have a conversation with you and hear your story, but also tell you my story and see what we have in common and see where we can grow the relationship. Because if I do that and then I ask for the referral, like, you guys are going to be able to go say, hey, I know Austin. We've had a couple conversations and here's what he's done in the past. Like, he's delivered on X and delivered on Y. And that sounds like it's a really good fit for, the challenge we're trying to overcome with this role or the solution we're trying to provide. And so I really think he's worth a shot. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to do that with somebody who just says, yeah, I'll refer you in. So making it about them and actually working to build the relationship up a little bit before you make that ask, that's what we're talking about here.
That's really powerful. One thing that we had that was a really awesome example of this exact scenario, but it happened very quickly. So there was an individual at Amazon. He is in a diversity and inclusion role. he just so happens to be a hiring manager, but he was not a recruiter. So he's getting less traffic to his profile than a recruiter would be on LinkedIn, right? Because inherently all the recruiters are getting all the traffic, i.e. they're not actually able to respond to everybody. So there's just way too much friction in that arena. What this individual did, Tim, you know her, Brianna, right? So Brianna went and she wrote a comment that was very insightful about diversity and inclusion, because that is a passion for her, right? It's a core belief of hers, right? It's not like, hey, you're a product manager, we should have a chat. It's a level deeper. It's, I believe what you believe at our core. And she wrote a really insightful comment on this article that he wrote on LinkedIn. That notification showed up on his cell phone immediately, right? Because that's the beauty of LinkedIn, that these comments that you write to other people show up on their cell phone as a text message, right? It's instant access to anybody you want. And within an hour, she got a call or she got a message back from him. And he said, I would love to chat with you. They had a 30-minute coffee chat all about D&I. And he's like, I would love to help you get into Amazon. Like, you seem like an unbelievable person. And she didn't even ask, right? It's asking without asking. And you're starting from a conversation of a actual real human connection with somebody else. So you have to dig deeper than surface level, than just some kind of bullet point on their LinkedIn profile. You have to find out, like, what do they believe? And if they're an individual on LinkedIn who doesn't have much on their profile, it's probably not necessarily somebody that you want to target. You want to target somebody who has some activity.
Yeah, 100%. And people in the comments have some great questions around, like, give us some examples, which is totally valid. Yeah. And so essentially there's a lot of things running through my head here. So I'm trying to consolidate in a way that makes sense. But so when we think about like value and making it about the other person, one, the story that you just told, John, is like, people want to help other people that they are inspired by and that they have really connected with. That's just like part of the human experience. Like, we've all had that moment where we've talked to somebody and just like clicked with them and we're like, wow, I really enjoyed talking to this person, or like, I would do something for this person if they asked, or whatever it is. And so how do you create that experience? Well, it does come down to being intentional, and it comes down to doing your research. And so, right off the bat here, so like the three of us are on this call. So John, like, I know that you are a career guy and you work at Amazon. I also know that everybody is emailing you about those same two things. So instead, what I'm going to do is look through your post history and see that you built a effectively mini half pipe in your driveway, which is super fucking dope. And you have been learning to skateboard. Yeah. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go find some friends who skateboard, or I'm going to go to Reddit, to the skateboard subreddit, and ask a question and be like, yo, if you guys had a $50 gift card, like, where would you get it to? Or, or not even $50, $10 or whatever it is, or what gift could you receive as a skateboarder that would make you so happy? And I'd get some responses. And then I would take that response and I would send it to you. And I'd be like, hey, John, here's some new trucks or whatever. That would be a terrible thing to send probably. But like, I'd send something skateboard related to you, or I'd ask you about it. And then Tim, like, you guys are launching Guide, and you guys have an app, right?
Yeah, we have a platform app.
So like, what matters to apps? Like, so many things: testimonials, reviews, like getting in front of people. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the internet and I'm going to type in, how do I market my platform? How do I market my app? I'm going to read a bunch of those articles. I'm going to look through the strategies and I'm going to be like, what of these things can I do for Tim? So can I go mention Guide to the people on my team at work and potentially get them to sign up? Like, can I go talk to 10 of my friends and be like, yo, I really want to connect with this dude. He's awesome. Can you guys hook me up? And everybody just go leave a review in the App Store, or go leave a review on the site. Or maybe I just pull out my phone and I record a quick video. I download the app, I use it for a little bit, and I record a video, and I'm like, I have my phone and I'm like, hey guys, like, I just used this app from this guy, Tim. It's amazing. Like, here's my experience. You all should check it out. And I send it to you and I say, Tim, feel free to use this anywhere on your site. Like, instant connection because these are things that both of you guys care about. And both of those were tailored specifically to you. Now, what I'll say is like, not everybody is like us, right? With this like massive online presence. And so John, to your point, like what if they don't have anything, or what about the people in between? So when we look at a community, there's this thing called the 99-1 rule. And it applies to online communities. And basically it states that it has its own Wikipedia page if people want to check it out. But it basically states that when you have an online community of critical mass, 1% of the people in that community will be the content creators. So the three of us creating original content, putting it out there. 9% will be people who engage with that content. So they're commenting, they're liking, they're sharing. They're not creating their own original content yet. 90% are lurkers. They're just observing. They're not engaging. They're not creating. They're not doing anything. So when you think about that, like the way that I approach the job search is, I start by finding 10 to 15 target companies, and I find 10 to 15 people at each of those companies. So I'm looking at a minimum of like 100 to 150 contacts. That's an online community. And so when that rule still applies. So I can expect, 1 to 2 to 3% of that community to have an active profile. Then I can expect 9 to 15%, let's say, to be active online. And so that's my group of people where I can go, implement some of these other strategies that we can talk about. The rest are going to be cold emails, and that's just kind of what it is. But, can you find something about their background? Like, John, I saw that you used to work at Best Buy, dude, and now you work at Amazon, and that is insane. Like, I'd love to hear about that journey. Or Austin, like, you worked in healthcare, now you work at Microsoft. Like, I imagine that couldn't have been easy. How did you do that? And so, if you want to hear something you can easily do is just use LinkedIn search filters. So if you go to LinkedIn and you type in the job title that you're looking for, you run that search, and then there's a little button on that sub tab, and I think you click more, and then you can click content, and then you can actually filter by company. And so what are you going to find now? You're going to find people who are at the company you want, in the target job title you want, who are posting content. And so that right there, that's your group of people. That's your 10% who are creating content or engaging or commenting. And now all of a sudden you can engage with their content. You can like their stuff. You can comment on it. That's a great way to get in the door. And I guess one last example is just like doing your research on this person. I was coaching somebody who wanted a job at Zendesk, which is a support platform. Yeah. And we had our list of 15 people at Zendesk, and we went through all their profiles, and one of them had a personal website where they basically blogged about the customer support experience. And so instead of just sending an email saying, John, to your point, like, oh, you're a support manager and I am too, like, let's connect. We looked at the articles on their website, and one of them was about empathy in the customer support process. And so we sent an email and said, hey, I was looking for people who are talking about the customer support process. I saw your article on empathy, and like, I cannot imagine a more important topic for today's world, for the COVID-19 pandemic world. Like, have you thought about updating this? Have you thought about getting it out there? Like, I'd love to help you spread the word. And that's an instant connection because, again, we took the time to understand what this person cares about. And so really what it comes down to is like, you got to do your research both on the company and on the people you're targeting. And you have to figure out, like, basically ask yourself the question, like, what would get this person excited to respond to me? And if you can answer that question, like, that is the foundation of a relationship that's going to bear fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, in summary, it goes levels deeper than asking, I need a job, right? Help me find a job. It is, what does Tim care about? What does John care about? Tim cares about guide. Tim has launched a tea brand, right? Tim cares about his tea brand. Why does Tim care about his tea brand, right? You just left Microsoft. That's fascinating. Why, right? All these topics.
What does Austin need help with?
What does Austin need help with? Right. Right. So those are really fascinating topics, man. And like, I'm gonna go through a couple of the questions.
We're gonna ask questions. By the way, I want to use this opportunity to slyly leave and say shout out to Austin and John for doing this. Sponsored by Guide, and really appreciate these two. And I have to skedaddle, but please show love to John and Austin, and grateful that you guys involved Guide to be a part of this.
Yo, and guys, we just talked about how to get in touch with Tim. Like, go leave a review, go send him a testimonial. Like, let's get some love for Guide, because that part is really amazing, man.
Oh, dude, thanks so much, brother. Congrats to you, man. And literally, I've already shared this conversation, but shout out to, it's 150 people in here, bro.
Yeah, let's go.
I know. And Tim, before you leave. Okay, so here's the rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement.
Take a photo of us before Tim leaves. Okay, take a photo of us before Tim leaves, and create a post with one key takeaway. Okay, we're gonna smile. You take a screenshot. Austin, you got to get in it. All right.
You want me to take it, or you?
No.
You're doing it right here.
I was doing that. I was having the audience take it.
My display is like super blurry, so I was
it's cool. We'll have a lot of people that do.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, man, Tim, thanks for coming, dude. Miss you, bro. Talk to you soon. We got to catch up, dude.
Oh, we got to catch up, dude. We have a lot to catch up on.
We do.
All right, brother. Talk soon.
Later, guys. Be well, Tim. Take care.
All right. So, all right, it's just us now. All right, I'm gonna look at this comment here. I want to broadcast this comment to the room from AG. I'm hesitant to interact on posts related to job openings on LinkedIn. I have people added in my connections from my current employer, and I fear they would know about my activities. I have seen that talk in the office about other colleagues. I need your guidance on how to manage this. So, you're afraid to talk about the job opening posts. What do you suggest there, Austin?
I don't think you need to engage with those posts. You can engage with so many other posts that are not necessarily job related. Yeah. And you can also just show love to people who are just putting content out there. And if people ask you, you can say like, hey, I was on this webinar with two guys who are, high performers, Austin and John. And they were telling me that, growing your brand on LinkedIn can really help you, accelerate your performance. And here's how I see that playing into my role. I feel like I could be a better employee by having a bigger network or promoting our company's brand or whatever it is. And you kind of spin it up to sound good for the person who you're talking to. Yeah. And then you're in good shape. But overall, like the posts that are advertising jobs are not the posts where you're, one, building those connections we talked about, or two, really gaining any traction. Like what we want to do is go find, again, the people who can refer us into the role and not just stop there, but actually influence the end hiring decision. And so even if that person has posted about a job, I think there's a better way to start the conversation. To your point, John, it's deeper than help me get a job. And so, I would avoid those, and I would try to find other ways to get in the door. And if LinkedIn's not an option for you, there's so many other avenues. There's other social media platforms. There's email. There's so many other ways to get in touch with somebody. LinkedIn is just one of those channels.
Yeah, that's right. And you have a tool on your website to find any corporate email address from any individual, right?
Yeah.
So cultivatedculture.com.
Yeah, so it's called mailscoop.io. So I'll just put it in the chat here. Okay. But yeah, Mailscoop is it'll help you find emails. It's not no email tool is 100% accurate, but it does a pretty good job. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I appreciate this job. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you got a lot of really helpful tools on Cultivated Culture. You guys should check that out. One thing that somebody did with me last year, which is a really great way of networking. He hit me up. He said that his story resonated with him, or my story resonated with him. That he was going through a similar situation. He had a baby on the way, really difficult situation, getting paid low wages, not sure what to do with his life. And that spoke to me, right? Like that's the core of why I do everything I do. And he struck that chord. And he said, I'd love to just meet with you and talk to you. That's it. It wasn't, I need a job. And behind the scenes, right? That this individual is struggling and needs help, but they're not asking for it. That's slight nuance, a difference there. He met with me at Starbucks pre-COVID, right? It's like these weird times. We talk about like pre-COVID, like before and after Christ over here. But pre-COVID, when we can actually sit with each other,
He gave me a book from Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. He said, this book is really inspiring. I think you'd really love it. It's a signed copy. I actually went to Lewis Howes, got it signed. The first thing I said to him is, how can I help you? First thing he said to me was, you don't need to help me. I want to learn about your story. And I was like, wow, okay. So he just asked me a bunch of questions about my story for 45 minutes. And then I was like, I felt so compelled to help him. I was like, how can I help refer you or do whatever it takes to get you in the door? Because you're just like an awesome dude. And the way you approached this was stellar. So if nothing else, use that type of approach. Hit them up with like, I love your story. I'm struggling with the same thing you struggled with. Dig in, find that thing that they struggled with, or find that thing they're passionate about, like skateboarding or like building a half pipe, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the transactional thing, because so many people say like networking is like gross or icky or transactional, but like that's part of the game, right? Like in life and in business, like our relationships are based on like a mutual value exchange. And to your point, like literally the story you just told, like sometimes giving and doing for others is something that makes us feel good and is something that's valuable to us. But it really only feels that way if we want to do that thing for the other person. You know, if that person had shown up to that 45-minute call or that conversation at Starbucks and was like, John, help me get a job, man. Just like, do it. Like, here's my laptop, send some emails. Like, that's a very different approach, and you probably would have had a different reaction. And so like networking only becomes transactional when you make it transactional. It's kind of like the line where people are like, it's only awkward if you make it awkward. Like that's actually super true here. And so understanding that, like showing up to the table and being interested in this person and trying to help them, or at least like showing interest in them, like recognition is a form of value. Like recognizing somebody for something that they've done makes them feel good, is valuable to them. And so, you know, that relationship can start on that foot, but like value exchange is just a part of networking. Like that's something that happens. And so once you get the relationship to a certain point, like somebody will actually be happy to refer you, or will be happy to do X, Y, or Z for you because they like you and because they want to continue that relationship with you. They want to do that thing. And so I wouldn't view that as like, you know, I'm only in this for a referral. Like, yes, if that's your attitude in a literal sense, that's not the best. But if you're in this, if you're saying to yourself, look, I'd love to get a referral, but more importantly, like this person has what I want. This person has gone through it. They've succeeded. Like I want to have them in my network because that's going to be valuable to me. And if I get a referral, great. Or if they help me get a referral, great. But I just know that having this person in my network is going to increase my chances of success in the long run. And if that's the way that you approach it, you know, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, I agree. And everyone on this call, like take the opportunity to listen to important talks from individuals, like search for YouTube, right? Listen to important talks from executives at these large tech companies, senior managers, senior leaders, even other individuals who have YouTube channels, who have LinkedIn presence. Watch that content and then create a post about the key takeaway. Same as what we recommended for you guys to do in this session, right? You watch the session, you digest it, there's a key takeaway, and you tag 2 individuals. And then what happens? It hits their cell phone, right? You get that notification in your inbox and you go, who just left a post about me? This is really interesting. Who just shared what I just spent a bunch of time writing, right? An article articles take a long time to write.
Yeah.
Right. They're scary to write. People are, you know, everyone is in our same shoes, right? No matter if you're a big content creator like Austin or someone else who's just getting started, right? Everyone is fearful of what other people are going to think, right? So even some senior leader at a company, they took the time to put themselves out there and create an article. And just so happens that only 9 people liked it so far, right? Nobody's left a comment. It's an unbelievable ripe opportunity for you to get on their radar.
Yeah. 100%. And you see that more and more with, you know, most people aren't a John Marty or an Austin Belsack. Like most people are exactly what you said. They throw something out there and there's 5 likes and no comments or 1 comment. And like such an easy way to stand out. So I love that suggestion. Yeah, man. And so like just one other thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Sometimes people talk as a transition into like content creation personally, right? So if you're an individual and you're like just getting started, people don't really necessarily understand the value of content creation
on their side of things when it comes to landing a job or a network. What is your thought on somebody getting started in content creation, and where could they benefit from creating their own posts other than these like strategic tagging type of events that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many benefits to starting up your own brand. And like, you know, I used to be, when I was younger, my whole mindset was like, I don't understand why anybody would work for a corporation. Like, corporations are stupid. They take advantage of you, like yada, yada, yada. And now, you know, you and I both, you know, have seen the benefit of working for a major corporation. And so I think that whatever your goal is, whether it is to climb the ladder in corporate America, whether it's to start your own thing, you know, whatever your goal is, having an audience and having a brand and having some thought leadership is always going to be a positive thing. And so, you know, just some examples across the board. Like I was having, same as you, I had a 30-minute conversation with somebody who had been doing exactly what you did. She showed up on my posts every day. She was commenting, super positive, super supportive. Then after a couple of weeks of that, came and asked me, you know, hey, I had a couple of things to run by you. So we hopped on the phone. She was struggling with content creation. And so we kind of talked through some stuff. And her big thing was consistency. So over the next month, she stuck with it. And she ended up landing a brand new offer at a new company simply because an executive at that company saw her posts and reached out to her and said, I love what you're talking about. Like, this is the mindset that we want at our company. And so you can get a job through this. But then on top of that, you also create a layer of security. So one of my favorite examples of this is, you know, it's an older example, but you know, Pat Flynn, if you're familiar with him, and for the people listening, like he was like one of the first people in the podcast game. But he runs a site called Smart Passive Income. His whole story is that like he was an architect in the sustainability space. And so you have to pass this thing called the LEED exam in order to, you know, continue operating in that space. And so he created these massive study guides, and he eventually just started sharing them on a blog, and all these other architects trying to pass the exam were coming to that blog. Well, lo and behold, in 2008, he got laid off, but he'd been doing this for, I think, a couple of years at that point, and he had built up an audience. And so what did he do? He put together a legit study guide, and he started selling it, and he ended up making more through that study guide than what he was making at his full-time job. But if he didn't have that side hustle, one, he would have lapsed in income, and two, he would have had to go find another job somewhere else. And so you just build in a security blanket for yourself. You know, whether or not you want to take your gig full time, that's totally up to you, and either way is cool, but you create some security for yourself. And then finally, you create leverage. Like when you have a following and people care about what you have to say and you have some thought leadership, like opportunities come to you, and you're a way more valuable employee to your organization simply because of, you know, the fact that you attract all these people to their brand. Like you're associated with their brand. And so there's so many reasons to get out there and start creating content. And I think the big thing, you know, people say, I don't know what to write about. And we all have our experiences, and you can write about anything from, like, if you have nothing else to write about, like make a commitment to document, you know, whatever it is that, like, pick something to get really good at. I want to be an amazing marketer. I want to be an amazing copywriter. I want to be an incredible administrative assistant. I think I saw somebody drop that in the chat. So like, what are you going to do to get there? And then document your journey as you go. There's somebody on LinkedIn, his name's Daniel. I'm forgetting his last name, but he comments on my stuff a lot, and I see his posts. And every week he basically shares like his like journey to becoming a marketer. And he talks about all the stuff that he's done that week, what worked, what didn't work. And people are like latching onto that. Like everybody loves a story, especially a come up story, when you're like, you've been with this person from the beginning and then you're seeing them succeed. Like people love that. And so at the very least, like that's stuff that you can talk about. But there's always ideas. There's always stories. Everybody in this chat on this webinar has something that they can talk about. Getting out there and sharing content is like one of the most powerful ways to add some security to your career, but also to accelerate your career.
Yeah, I agree. And initially, I had somebody a couple of days ago. I told him that he should start creating content. He didn't understand. He said, "Well, recruiters are not actually reaching. You know, this is not benefiting me from a recruiter standpoint." And I said, "But what you fail to forget is every single person who likes your post is a way in to now have a conversation with somebody you didn't have before."
Yep.
So look at the likes on your post. Who is liking your content? Who are they connected to? Are they working for an organization that you want to work for? It's not about the recruiters, guys. It's about the connections you build. You are creating a funnel that is attracting people who believe what you believe to you. That's the goal. And if nothing else, right? If it doesn't result in a job right away, if nothing else, it's clarifying your own thinking. It's clarifying your own, your ability to communicate. And that is one of the most coveted skills in corporate America.
Yeah, 100%.
That alone, right? That alone could get you a job. People are always like, oh, well, I don't have transferable skills. It's like, if you can write well, that is one of the only things that matters. Nothing else matters. Writing is an incredible skill. Communicating is an incredible skill that is often overlooked because we just have this email culture that doesn't necessarily focus on it. But I know at Microsoft and Google and Facebook, writing is a massive part of our jobs. So, yeah.
That's what I don't understand. Like why? So to me, copywriting is the most valuable skill that you can have in today's market. Like more so than programming, more so than coding. When we think about our communications, I mean, especially now during a pandemic, everything is in writing. We text our friends and our family. We send emails to coworkers. We apply to jobs with a resume. We, write blog posts or LinkedIn comments. Like everything that we do is written. And if you're not studying how the way that you're writing and the way that you're formatting what you're talking about and the way that you're saying things, if you're not looking at that, you're missing a big opportunity because you can really shift somebody's behavior and you can really change the outcome and swing the odds in your favor if you understand the impact that your writing and your words have in something as simple as an email. Like 100%, like there are things that your boss has said no to that they might have said yes to if you had taken a different approach in that email. And so understanding, copywriting, I think is the most valuable skill because clearly communicating your ideas and being able to get buy-in when you're pitching something, especially something that you want, what's more powerful than that?
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. So let me ask you this. We're at the top of the hour. If you could say one thing to the community here, one key takeaway, what would it be?
Man, I think the biggest thing that I could say is we've covered a lot, but my advice would be this: quick exercise, daily exercise. Like after this call, if you're a job seeker, go make a list of 10 target companies and then go use LinkedIn to find 10 to 15 people at each of those target companies and have that list in front of you. And then every single day, go through one person on that list and Google their name, look at their LinkedIn profile, like see where else they're active online. And then think about a plan where you can do something for them. Can you leave a comment on their post? Can you send them an email recognizing them for something that they've done? Try to send them a message that is not necessarily about the job search and not necessarily asking for anything whatsoever. And then try to see if you can get through 3 to 4 touch points without making an ask for something that's selfish. You can make an ask like, hey, John, I want to learn about your journey from Best Buy to Amazon. But without making an ask like, hey, can you refer me to this role? And just do that every day. Like just get in the mindset of here's a person I want to connect with. Let me do my research and let me focus on one angle that I can take or something that I can do to make this about them. And literally, like if you scroll through your post history, those skateboard pictures in your stories about skateboarding come up. Like that is something easy to find. Like Tim is promoting the crap out of Guide. Like that's easy to find. And so the more that you kind of train yourself to see somebody and say, how can I add value to this person? The more results you're going to get for yourself. And so it's really about getting in that mindset and training your brain. So that would be the one key thing I'd have everybody do after they hop off the call. And I think if you do that, you're hitting up 365 people a day. Maybe you take weekends off. I hope you take weekends off, but that's going to be really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate that insight. I think I'd leave this with overcoming the fear of what other people will think of you, and recognizing that it's all about percentages, right? Like, we started this conversation from the point where 2% of people enter the front of the funnel from a job seeker perspective. It is also the same people who put themselves out there and create content. It's 1%. It's 2%, right? It's 99% of people are lurking content online, and 1 or 2% of the 650 million people on LinkedIn are actually creating any content. So you have an evergreen opportunity to build whatever size audience in whatever topic that you're really passionate about, and have the world, literally the world, see you for whatever you want to be. You don't have to ask for anyone's permission to be who you want to be, right? If you're in a job that you don't like right now and you want to do something else in a different job family, do those projects, post the journey, say to the world that I am on this journey to be this. And I'm going to be posting daily things. You don't have to be an expert. So there's this mental model a lot of people have that blocks them because they think they have to be an expert or they have to be somewhere before they can start sharing their value with the world. But it's like, no, just share your journey. You don't have to be like, hey, here are 5 tips you should do to get a job or whatever. And you're like working at Best Buy. That's not the approach. The approach is, I'm currently working at Best Buy, and I'm making $12 an hour, and this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm feeling, but I'm going here. And every day I'm posting about where I'm going, what I'm learning, what I'm doing. So do that. Start now. Do it often. And opportunities are going to start coming to you. You're never going to have to apply and pray for anything in the future if you just take that approach, one piece of content after the next, and after a year, you will notice incredible things happening for yourself. So anyway, I think that's probably a good spot to segue into thanking everyone for joining. We really appreciate you all for coming, and hopefully you got a lot of value out of this experience. We are going to be putting out a recording, so I'll package up the recording, make sure that I send it to everybody who registered so you can redigest this information. And be sure to follow Austin on LinkedIn. He has now 500 and some odd 30,000 people following him, which is insane. He has more people following him now than some of the largest companies in the world, which is crazy to think about that. The power of that you wield with that type of following over consistently creating content. And be sure to also check out cultivatedculture.com, his website. He's got incredibly valuable stuff on his website. And a shameless plug for myself. I have a YouTube channel. Check out John Marty's YouTube channel. Easy thing to search. I got a lot of career advice there. And be sure to follow me on LinkedIn. Same type of stuff. A lot of advice there. So thanks, everyone.